chapter 6.4, and we're still with the quadratic equations, solving quadratic equations. And now we're using the quadratic formula. So if we have a quadratic equation of the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, the solutions for x is equal to, given by this formula, minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. This is known as the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. So we're going to get right into solving problems using the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula, by the way, can be used to solve any quadratic equation. Any quadratic equation, whether it's can be factored and cannot be factored, you can still use the quadratic formula to solve it. 3x squared plus 16x plus 1 equal to 0. So in order to use the formula, we identify the coefficient of x squared as a, the coefficient of x as b, and the constant term as c. Now, good practice is to always write your formula. Don't try to remember the formula and substituting it without writing it down. So this is b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Then take one whole step to substitute numbers into your formula. So this is minus 16. Let's use a different color for this. Minus 16 plus or minus 16 squared minus 4 times 3 times 1. All over 2 times 3. A is 3. And now you can work on simplifying your parentheses, so your equation. So minus 16 plus or minus 16 squared is 256. 4 times 3 times 1 is negative 12 divided by 6. So this is negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 244 divided by 6. Now you want to try to simplify the radical. In this case, the radical can be simplified as 4 times 61. That's the only perfect square that we can grab out of there. 4 6 is 24, 4 1s are 4. Divided by 6. So this is negative 16 plus or minus the square root of 4 is 2. 61 over 6. Notice that on the numerator you can factor out 2 to get negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 11. I'm sorry, the square root of 61 over 6. And 2 goes into 6 3 times. So what we've got left here is negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 61 over 6. So two solutions. X is equal to negative 8 plus square root of 61 over 6. And negative 8 minus the square root of 61 over 6. X squared plus 6x minus 20 is equal to 0. So again, start by identifying what A is, what B is, and what C is. Oops, that's coming out to be an E for some reason. Okay. X is equal to minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC divided by, what's going on with these C's here? Have a mind of their own. Oh, let's try to fix this in one to over 2A. Now remember what I said, take one entire step to make your substitutions. So this is negative 6 plus or minus 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 20 over 2 times 1. And now we start simplifying. Negative 6 plus or minus 36. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 20 is positive 80 over 2. So this is negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 116 over 2. And you want to look carefully at that radical and see what, if we can possibly simplify it. The way I do it is I take 116 and start dividing by 2. 2 5s are 10, 2 into 16, 8. Then I'm going to try 2 again. And I can see that 2 goes to give me 29. 29 is cannot be broken down further than that. So this is negative 6 plus or minus 4 times 29 over 2, which is negative 6 plus or minus 2 square root 29 over 2. You have to be willing to do the work here to get this. Factor out the 2 on the numerator. This gives negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2. And then notice that the 2 cancels out with the 2 to give minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 29. So my two solutions is -3 plus the square root of 29 and -3 minus the square root of 29. Three x squared minus 4x plus 5 is equal to 0. So a is equal to 3, b is equal to -4, and c is equal to +5. X is equal to -b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac underneath the square root sign over 2 times a. Making my substitution, I have so b is -4. I have negative of -4 plus or minus, I'll be careful here because this is -4 squared minus 4 times 3 times 5 all over 2 times 3. So negative times negative becomes +4 plus or minus -4 squared is +16, and 4 times 3 times 5 is -12 5, so 60 over 6. So this is 4 plus or minus the square root of -44 over 6. Now, as it stands here, this has no real solutions, right? No real solutions, since we cannot take the square root of -44 and get a real number, but we can get a complex answer. So let's continue working. This is 4 plus or minus I44 over 6, which is 4 plus or minus I 4 times 11 over 6, which is 4 plus or minus 2I square root of 11 over 6. And then notice that we can factor out 2 on the numerator. So we've got 2 into 2 plus or minus square root of 11. Remember, this is written as a plus bi, so the I should be stuck on the end here, over 6. 2 into 6 is 3. Which is -2 plus or minus the square root of 11I over 3. So the complex solutions, x is equal to -2 over 3 plus square root of 11 over 3I, and negative 2 over 3. I'm sorry, this is not negative, it's positive. Positive 2 over 3. What am I getting? Positive 2 over 3 minus square root of 11 over 3i. This is the complex form of the answer. Remember, the complex form complex number is a plus bi. Find the x-intercepts of y is equal to negative 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 plus 3. So remember that to find x-intercepts, set y equal to 0. So we've got negative 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 equal to 0. And we can proceed to solve this using the quadratic formula. State your formula. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And start substituting numbers into your formula. Negative 7 plus or minus 7 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 4 times negative 2 times c is 3 over 2 times negative 2. So it's negative 7 plus or minus 49, 4 twos are 8, 8 threes are 24. Positive negative times negative gives me a positive number right there, divided by negative 4. So this is negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 73 divided by negative 4. So 73 cannot, the radical 73 cannot be simplified, so x is equal to negative 7 plus square root 73 over 4, negative 4, and negative 7 minus the square root of 73 over negative 4. All right, I'm going to do a couple of word problems with you. An object is shot vertically upwards and the height h in feet and time t in seconds is given by h of t is equal to negative 16 t squared plus 135t plus 140. Find the times when the object is 173 feet above the ground. So if we picture what's happening here, this is a parabola, and this is the graph because we're given a quadratic formula for it. The y-axis would be your height, and the x-axis would be the time t. And they're telling us that at some point, this height is at 173 feet, and it's going to have two different times. That is 173 feet. So we have 0, time 1, then it's going to go up to a maximum height and come back to time 2. So there's two times when this object would be at 173 feet. To effectively solve this, we would then set negative 16 t squared plus 135t plus 140 is equal to that height where it's at 173 feet. Okay, because we're saying that that's the point when the time is equal to 173 feet. Take away 173 from both sides. That gives negative 16 t squared plus 135t minus 33 is equal to 0. And then using our quadratic formula here, a is equal to negative 16, b is equal to 135, and c is equal to negative 33. So time, not x this time, minus b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac square root over 2a. And I'm going to take a whole step here to make my substitution. Negative 135 plus or minus square root of 135 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 33 over 2 times negative 16. So I'm going to ask my calculator for help simplifying the part underneath the square root sign. Okay, so I go to my calculator. I've got 135 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 33. And I get 16113. Okay, right here we can go ahead and make this negative 32. So you've got a couple of ways to do this. I would go ahead and find the square root of 16113. To give 126.94. Over negative 32. So my two solutions for time is negative 135 plus 126.94 divided by negative 32, and negative 135 minus 126.94 divided by negative 32. And I'm going to do a bit of work with the calculator. So negative 135 plus 126.94, enter, divide negative 32, to give me my first answer, which is 0.25. Take it to 2 decimal places. So 0.25 seconds. And then we're going to take the second answer, negative 135 minus 126.94. Don't divide right away. Get that, then divide by negative 32 to give 8.19 seconds to 2 decimal places. It means that the 2 times when this object would be at 173 feet high would be at 0.25 seconds, which is pretty fast, and 8.19 seconds later. So it would go up to some height up here and then come down back and achieve what it wants to achieve. Okay, one final question, word problem. Okay, a rectangle is 7 centimeters longer than it is wide. Find the dimensions of the rectangle if its area is 330 square centimeters. So it probably helps to see a picture of this rectangle. And we know we have a length and a width. So let's call the sides x and the outer sides x plus 7 centimeters longer. Okay, and we know that area of a rectangle is the length times the width. So the area of 330 is equal to the length multiplied by the width. So this gives 330 is equal to x squared plus 7x. Then taking away 330 from both sides, we've got 0 is equal to x squared plus 7x minus 330. This looks a little clumsy, so we're going to flip it around and put the 0 on the right hand side. Just a little personal quirk. Believe it or not, this equation can be factored, but it's reasonably difficult to factor it. So we're going to use the quadratic formula to solve it. B is equal to 7, C is equal to negative 330. So x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. So minus 7 plus or minus 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 330 negative over 2 times 1. Minus 7 plus or minus. So I'm going to put that entire expression into my calculator. I'm going to put 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 330 into my calculator. Square root 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3. Let's start with 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 330 to get 37. So this is plus or minus 37 over 21. I'm sorry, this is not 21. What am I doing? This is 2. Yeah, 2. 2 times 1 is 2. So x is equal to a negative 7 plus 37 over 2, which is 30 over 2, which is 15. And then x is equal to negative 7 minus 37 over 2, which is negative 7 and negative 42 over 2, which is negative 21. I hope you can see the quandary here because the side cannot be negative length, so we discard this answer. So we know that the sides are equal to 15, and then the x plus 7 values are 15 plus 7, which is 22. So each of these are 22. So the dimensions are 15 centimeters and 22 centimeters. Remember, x plus 15 is equal to 22.